Welcome everyone to the 6th Blender art critique video on my channel. Now before we get into the art critique, I wanted to talk about the new art critique schedule that I've created. And I think that this new schedule is going to work better for you guys, and also I think it'll be better for me as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one art critique video every month, and I'm going to make the art critique video at the starting of every month. So what you guys can do is you can submit your artwork sometime around the last couple of days of the month. So I'm filming this video on March 2nd. So for instance, if you wanted your artwork to be critiqued in the next critique video, then you could submit your artwork to be critiqued around March 30th or 31st, the last couple of days of the month, somewhere at the end of the month. And then I will make the next art critique video at the starting of the next month. So I'll try to put out the video somewhere around April 1st to April 3rd, somewhere around there, sometime within the first 3 days of the next month. Now you can of course submit your artwork anytime within the month, but if you don't want to wait as long, then that's when I'm going to be making the art critiques. I'm going to be making them at the beginning of every month. So you can submit your artwork at the end of the month. Just make sure it's at the end of the month and not the first day, because at the first of the month, that's when I'm going to go through all the artworks and figure out which ones I want to critique, and then I'll make the critique video at the starting of the month. So I'm doing this for a few reasons. One reason is that if you guys have a work in progress, some artwork that you're working on, and you want some feedback, maybe you're kind of stuck and you want to finish the artwork, then instead of like submitting your artwork and then having to wait like 2 weeks for me to put out the art critique video, you can know that if you submit it at the end of the month, then within a few days, then I will make the art critique video. So if you submit your finished artwork or work in progress the last day of the month, then it'll only take a couple of days and I should have the video out within just a few days of the new month. Also, because I'm going to be doing one a month instead of one every 2 weeks, so one a month instead of two a month, I'm going to be making longer art critique videos and I'm going to be able to critique more artwork. So in the recent art critique videos, I've only critiqued maybe like 4 to 6 artworks, but now that I'll be doing art critiques once a month, I'm going to be critiquing probably 8, 10, maybe even 12 or more artworks. So the videos are going to be longer and I'll be able to critique more artworks. And this will also just give more time for people to submit artworks, because this art critique, I only got 4 artworks submitted, and 2 of them I just didn't really know how to critique. They weren't really good for critique videos, so I'm actually only going to be critiquing 2 artworks in this video. So if I do one a month, then hopefully that'll give more time for people to submit their artwork. Alright, so now let's go and critique those 2 artworks. So I'm going to throw the artworks right up on the screen. So we have these 2 artworks right here. So there's a blend file, and then there also is a final render that I'm going to be critiquing. Alright, so this first artwork comes from GG Premium. Okay, so this is a really cool artwork, quite photorealistic. I really like it. These wine bottles are quite realistic, and I really like the lighting. Overall, the lighting is quite good, very realistic. The modeling is really good. I don't really have any critiques with the modeling, and I really like the textures and materials that you chose. And these are really cool too. It looks like maybe these are some like spice jars with some spices in them. And then there's like a little wooden rack or something. And this fruit here looks really realistic. It looks like maybe a couple bananas and some pears or something. Yeah, really good work. I do have a few things that I would critique, but this is really quite good. So the first thing that I would do is I would render this out with a larger image size. So I would turn the resolution up, because even just looking at it on this monitor, this screen drawing tablet that I have is just like a 1080p monitor, but I can actually kind of notice that it looks a bit low quality. And if I just zoom in a little bit, I can really start to see the pixels. I can just, see the pixels in there. It's not a very large image. If I look at the image properties, it's only 1080 by 1080 pixels. So I think it would be better if you rendered this like maybe double the size, or maybe render it at 1920 by 1920. And then the next thing that I would do is I would make these little handles here be a metal material, because it looks like you just use the same gray material for those handles. You can see right here, there's like that metal material right there for the handle to like open the oven, and it just looks like a basic metal shiny material. So that's what I would do for these. I would just, on all of these different handles right here and also like right over here, I would just add a basic shiny kind of gray metal material. And then also, it looks like some of the UVs need to be fixed. I really like this marble material that you added. It looks quite good. But you can see that on the lip here, when it comes down, it looks like the marble texture is kind of being stretched. Kind of, you can see right there. You can also see it like right here. It kind of looks like the UVs are being stretched right there. So go in there and kind of fix the UVs so that it's not stretched, because it just looks like the texture in here is all being stretched and pulled down. Now, I really like the light up here that you added. That's really cool, but I feel like it's probably a little bit too bright because everything is really blown out here. The texture is really blown out. Also, the table right here, the countertop is super, super bright, and it is pretty bright here on like the fruit and stuff. And then this microwave here, I would change this to more of like a gray, shiny metal material. And then also regarding the microwave, I think that it's a little bit too small. It seems to me like it couldn't really fit a dinner plate in the microwave. Like if you're trying to warm up some food, maybe it could heat up like a small bowl of soup. You might be able to fit a bowl in there, but it seems like a full-size dinner plate would probably be like that big, whereas this door right here is probably only like that big. Also, if you compare it to something like the banana, bananas are usually all pretty much the same size. So you can see this is how long the banana is. And if you compare that to this, it's probably about the same size. So if you opened it up and tried to put something in it, it'd probably only be about the size of a banana, which is kind of small. You could probably fit a bowl of soup, but you probably couldn't fit like a whole dinner plate in that microwave. So it is pretty small. So what I would do is just take that entire microwave 3D model and just scale it up to about this big. That seems to be a more realistic size. And then the last thing that I would do is to just show more of the scene. It's a really cool scene, but I feel like I'm kind of like boxed in. Like I can only see this one side of the kitchen and there's kind of more of the kitchen coming this way. So what I would do is rotate the camera so it's looking a little bit more that way so that you can kind of see more of this side of the kitchen. Also, I would probably bring it back a little bit so you can see the ending of those lights kind of going up into the ceiling. And I kind of imagine that right here, right out of the scene, there might be like a fridge or something. So I think it'd be really cool if you just like model a little bit more of the kitchen, kind of zoomed out and just showed a little bit more so that you can see like more of the floor and just see a little bit more of the kitchen. Because right now I just kind of feel like I'm only seeing a very small part of the kitchen. I kind of feel like I'm stuck in like a box or something, and I kind of just want to be able to see more of the scene. So that's what I would do to improve this artwork, but this is really cool and it's pretty photorealistic. Photorealism definitely is a hard thing to get right, so this is really quite good. So thank you for sending in this artwork. Alright, so hopefully I'm pronouncing this name right. I threw it into Google Translate to listen to how it's pronounced. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. So this artwork is from Fatih Akan, and they sent in this sculpt here. And they said that this was their third day of sculpting, and they had a problem with mirroring over a sphere for the eyes. And this is another reason why I want to do my art critiques at the starting of the month, because this is only their third day of sculpting, and so they sent this in, but they sent this in like 2 weeks ago, and so they may already be quite a bit better actually, because when you're first learning, it seems like you can improve a lot faster. So that's another reason why I think it would be better to do art critiques at the starting of the month, so they can just send this in at the starting of the month, and then I'll be able to critique it just a few days after. So for this being only your third day of sculpting, this is actually really quite good. When I started sculpting, my sculpts were totally not this good by my third day. I was sculpting for probably at least a couple of weeks or more to even get a sculpt this decent. So this is really quite good, and you're improving really fast. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go to the grab brush, and I'm just going to start to kind of pull this around and play with the proportions to make it a bit more realistic. So I'm going to start with the eyes. So the eyes are actually quite a bit lower on the head. They're actually almost like halfway in between the top of the head and the bottom of the head. So I'm just going to start by kind of pulling these down. That's pretty good. Now, if I look on the top view here and also kind of look on the side, the face is somewhat flat. It's not as flat as my face is when I first started sculpting. I just had really flat faces. So it's pretty good, but it does need to be a bit more round because the face is very round and the different facial features curve around the face. So using the grab brush, I'm going to just take this front part of the face and just pop it out. So I'm just kind of tapping along here. Go to the top, kind of pop that out. Okay, just kind of bring out that forehead. Also the back of the head, I'll kind of bring that out, maybe push this in a little bit. There's a lot of space in between the jaw and the neck, and the jaw is also really big. So I'm going to pull the jaw in, and then also make this neck a little bit thicker. If I go down here, I'll pull this neck out as well to kind of make the neck a lot more round because the neck is very round. Now looking at it from the front here, it is very long and the face isn't really that wide or long. And also the side of the face is somewhat flat. So I'm just going to kind of tap in here and kind of bring that in. You can see I'm kind of looking at it from far away and kind of moving around to check my angles and shapes. and try to get it right. This jaw is really big. If I go back to the side view, yeah, it's a pretty big jaw. And also the mouth is pretty high up on the face. So using the grab brush again, I'm going to kind of pull that down. Maybe go to the front view. And then the mouth curves around the face. So the front of the mouth, I'm going to pop it out a little bit. And then the back of the mouth, I'm going to pull it in a little bit. So you can see now, if I'm looking at this from front view or bottom view, you can see that's very curved and it's rotating around the face. I'm going to hold down the control key and kind of carve in here to carve where the jaw is and really just define that jaw. Okay, so I'm going to go in there and then I'm going to go down and to the side, down and to the side. And then this jaw here and the chin, it's just really big. So I'm going to hold down the control key and just kind of go in here. Kind of smooth it out and make it smaller. Also make it a little bit lower down. And then also I can hold down the control key and kind of cut in here to kind of get that shape a little bit more realistic, get the proportions a little bit more accurate. Now there's this kind of big angle coming out right here. So I'm going to hold down the control key, kind of bring that in a little bit, just kind of smooth that out a little bit. Okay, and then this is kind of sinking in a little bit too much. And there is a big muscle here that kind of moves the jaw up and down. So I'm just going to kind of add that right there. And then just smooth this out. So we definitely need to work on this nose because something is definitely wrong here. Pull the nose down and kind of bring it in a little bit. And then right here, it kind of goes in. So right here, I'm just going to kind of push it in a little bit. Let's go to the clay strips. And I'm just going to kind of go along here. Holding down the control key, kind of going in. So then on the nose here, just kind of going along here and bringing that out. And then right here, holding down the control key, kind of bring that in. Now these nostrils, they're kind of a little bit thin. So what I'm going to do is actually just kind of go along here, smooth them out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make kind of like a triangle shape like this. And then smooth that out. And then we'll pop out the sides here, the wings of the nose, just kind of going around there, popping that out. And then I can hold down the control key and go around here and then smooth that out to kind of make that shape there, kind of behind the wings of the nose. And then also to make the cheek kind of come down around, especially when you smile, there's kind of a little crease there. I'm just going to go along here and just make a subtle crease there and then just kind of smooth it out a bit. Also, the nose just does feel a little bit big. So I'm just going to, using the grab brush, just kind of bring the whole thing in and make it a bit smaller. So the eyes here, they're kind of a bit of a mess, so I'm just gonna actually redo them. So first, I like to make the eye sockets because where the eyes are, it kind of goes way back before coming back out. So I'm just gonna hold down the control key, kind of go along here in circles, and just carve in where those eye sockets are, and then hold down the shift key and kind of just smooth that out. So I'm just making some circles. Okay, kind of going along here, making where I want the eyebrows to be, or just the brow kind of popping out a little bit. Kind of defining where I want that to be, and then just smoothing that out a little bit. Then also here, I want the nose to be a little bit more flat, so I'm going to hold down the control key, kind of flatten it out right there, and then also hold down the control key on the side, kind of flatten out the side of the nose. Then also adding the cheekbone. So we're just going to go along here, kind of pop this out a little bit. Just going along there, kind of curves around a bit. Okay, and then just smoothing that out. And then let's go ahead and add those eyes. And you said you were having some problems with the eyes, so I'll just show you how I do it. So I press Shift-C to center my 3D cursor to the center of the view there. Then I press Shift-A, and I'm just going to add a UV sphere. And then for this one, I'll just rotate this on the X by 90 degrees. So R to rotate, X on the X-axis, 90 for 90 degrees, and then enter. And then what I can do is just scale this, grab it, scale it down, grab it over, and we're just going to stick it inside the eye socket. And I do think that this is a lot easier than kind of sculpting the eye by itself, because this way the eye is already perfectly circular. Okay, and then I will shade that object smooth. Now to add the mirror modifier, you can go add modifier right here on the modifiers panel. Add modifier, and then right down here, click on the mirror. Now it's not mirroring it over, and that's because the origin point is in the very center of that right there. So they're just kind of mirroring on top of each other. So you can tell it to mirror it from an object. So if you just open this up, you can see mirror object. You're going to click on the eyedropper and then just click on the icosphere, and now it's going to mirror it over to the other side. So you're telling it to mirror it from this object center. And then that way, if you just grab the eyes and move them, it's going to mirror that over. Okay, maybe just scale the eyes down a little bit, kind of move them in. And then let's tab into edit mode. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select this loop, and then hold down the Shift key and select this. I can now press S to scale and kind of scale it up, and maybe just G to grab, X on the X-axis, actually Y on the Y-axis, scale that up, okay. And then I can just tab back into edit mode, press Ctrl R and add a loop cut here, and then press Ctrl R and add a loop cut right there. So now we just kind of have that eye, it's kind of popping out, and that might be popping out a little too much. So if you just Alt select this loop and press S to scale and kind of scale it way down, there we go, that is pretty good. Okay, so now we can sculpt those eyelids. So what I do is I just go to the clay strips, and the eyelids are pretty hard to sculpt, so don't feel too bad if your eyelids are not turning out very well. I've sculpted tons of eyelids, and they're pretty hard to learn, and I still think that I need to improve my own eyelids. But what I do is I turn the Dyn Topo and go to the clay strips, and then I just start to go back and forth, kind of around here in a circle, and just kind of bring out those eyelids, okay? And then I do the same thing for the bottom side, so I just go along here, kind of going back and forth, and eventually it's kind of going to pop through. And then once they're kind of like that, kind of these blobby shapes, I go to the grab brush and I kind of fix the shape of it. So I kind of bring it down, kind of bring this up. And then the bottom eyelid is going to be a lot straighter than the top eyelid. So I try to make this pretty straight. And then if you need to kind of pull it around the eyelid or the eyeball at all, you can kind of pull that around, because the eyes are very round, and so the eyelids are going to curve around the eye. So I try to make that one pretty flat. If you go to the grab brush, just kind of try to make that somewhat flat. It is a bit round, but it's a lot flatter than this one. And then this one up here, kind of make that going up like that. And then pull it back down a little bit, because I don't want it to be that thick of an eyelid. Eyelids aren't too thick, they're actually pretty thin. That's pretty good. So now that I'm done with that, I go back to the clay strips and I just go along here and add more clay and then just kind of smooth that out. Kind of cut in here a little bit. Just pop out any areas if they need to come out, and then just hold down the Shift key and kind of smooth that out just like that. And then hold down the Control key and kind of cut in a little bit if it's a little bit thick. Like that is a little bit thick, so I want to make it a bit thinner. So I'm just going to go along there, holding down the Control key, and then also hold down the Shift key and go back and just smooth that out just a little bit. And then I want to make the tips of the eyelids kind of pop out a bit. So what I do is I go to the Crease Brush and I hold down the Control key and just go along this little spot right there, and it just kind of pops that ridge out and makes that a bit better shape like an eyelid. And then for the nostrils here, I'm just going to go to the clay strips, or actually I think I'll go to the draw brush because that works better. So on your character, the wings of the nose were pretty thin, so I find making this shape first is a bit better, and then you can go to the draw brush, kind of hold in the Control key and kind of carve in that there for the wings of the nose. And then you can just go around in circles here, and they kind of come in and then kind of come out, so they're kind of angled, and just go in like that. I find that's the best way to sculpt them. You could also use the grab brush, kind of pull them out a little bit, make those a little bit bigger. And then you could also go to the clay strips brush and kind of pop this out to make it come down a little bit, because I find that the nose does that. All right, let's work on the lips for a little bit. So I'm gonna hold on the Control key, just kind of bring that in a little bit. And then I'm just going to go along here and kind of make the lips higher topology. Now, if you had to sculpt with lower topology because maybe your computer was a bit laggy, then that's totally fine. You could turn this number up if you need to. But this is pretty low quality, so I'm going to just go along here. Just give it more topology, okay? And then also hold in the Control key, go in here. Now, for cutting in the mouth, I find that it's actually better if you use the draw brush. I just think it works better. You can see the draw brush just kind of cuts it in even more. It just kind of pushes it back farther. So I'm just holding down the Control key, kind of cutting in there with the draw brush, and then also holding down the Shift key and just kind of smoothing that all out. Okay, now the lips here, I find that it's best if you use the clay strips and go along the form. So clay strips brush, just kind of going along here, smoothing that out if you need to, but then just kind of going down. And the lip is going to be thicker where it's kind of in the center, and then as it comes up, it's kind of going to get thinner. So just going along there, back and forth, thickening that up and then smoothing it out. Okay, and then also you could hold down the Control key, kind of flatten that if it's kind of a little too puffy. because sometimes they can kind of be a little bit puffy. It's kind of easy to make things kind of blobby or puffy with sculpting. So now for this, it's kind of bumping up like this, and actually there's usually a little bit of an indent on the center top lid. So I'm going to hold in the control key and kind of go along here. Also making that little crease in there in between your nose and your mouth. There's usually like a little crease in there. So I'm just going to go along that and then hold in the shift key and just smooth it out. And then kind of have this bump out up a little bit before it kind of goes down. And then just doing the same thing basically, so sculpting along the form of that. And then as it goes out to the side of the mouth here, it's going to be thinner and thinner. So you made it even, like hold down the control key and kind of push some of that back in. And then right out here, make it a little bit thicker. So you can see that already is looking a lot better. This could, of course, be improved even more, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but just kind of showing you some of the biggest areas that I think could be improved and how I would improve it. And then let's do the ear really quick. So for the ear, I would use the draw brush and kind of go along here and just pop it out even more. The placement of the ear is pretty good if you bring those eyes down. I think the placement of the ear is pretty good. So I would just go along here with the draw brush and kind of pop that out. And then once that is brought out a little bit more, you could hold down the control key with the draw brush and kind of push that in a little bit. So just going along there, holding down control, pushing that in so there's kind of a separate space. Kind of here's the ear and then here's the head. And this is really tricky. Again, this is really tricky. It takes a lot of practice. And then I'm also just holding down the shift key and kind of smoothing out the side of the head there. All right, and then what you can do is go to the crease brush, hold down the control key and kind of flatten out some areas if they need to be flattened out, like right here. Kind of want to flatten that out. Now there's the whole of the ear, so I'm going to use the draw brush, kind of hold down the control key and kind of go in there. And then there's also a little kind of area that kind of pops out like that. And then also there's kind of like a curved Y shape. It kind of goes like this. And then it kind of goes down like that. So there's kind of like these two lumps that kind of connect. And then also the ear goes back inside here. So if you want to go up inside the ear and then hold down the control key and kind of just pop that in, kind of hollow out the ear a little bit. And also if you're finding that these two sides are getting too close to each other and they're kind of glitching and messing up the sculpt, what you can do is click on the brush here and then click on front faces only, and that way it's going to sculpt only the front faces, so it shouldn't mess up these two. Like sometimes if you're sculpting these and this part of it and this part of it get kind of close to each other, you can have some issues. So I like to turn on front faces only, and that helps. And there are some more forms within the ear, but I don't want to go too detailed. Especially when you're first starting out, your first few months even, it's better just to kind of keep things, I think it's a little bit better to keep things a little bit simple. Still, you can try to go for realism, definitely. I think realism is really good. Before you do stylized stuff, I think it's better to kind of get your realism down a little bit. But when you're first starting out, definitely trying to keep it a little bit simple and not get overwhelmed with all of the details. All right, so there we go. I don't want to go into too much detail, but hopefully this has kind of helped you to just be able to improve those different kind of forms and things. And remember, I've been sculpting for over 3 years, so if your sculpt isn't looking like this, that's totally fine. My sculpts were terrible for a long time, and it was kind of frustrating, but you really just have to keep on practicing and you will improve. All right, so that's going to be it for this art critique video, so I hope that these critiques were helpful for you guys. And remember, I'm doing the new art critique schedule, so the best time to send in your artwork is the end of the month. So the last couple of days of the month, you can submit your artwork to be critiqued through the Google form. I'll leave a link in the video description to the form where you can submit your artwork to be critiqued. So submit your artwork sometime at the end of the month, and then at the starting of each month, I will be making an art critique video. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in a future video.